strategic move that Eddie is making for AJ. Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for kind of animal?
If that was years and years and years ago. Like, Clarissa is a way different fighter from when she was back in the
Thanks to those joining me live and to those that will be joining me on our
defenses that she's had to have recently. You know, she's pulled people.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the RoundTable about tribalism. I don't think tribalism is necessarily bad. I just don't think it has to be.
I don't know what he think he sees or what he think he know. But he going to the hospital, bro. Like, bro, you not winning that fight.
You guys mentioned, I think, D-Style, you mentioned him versus Regis program. I'd love that. Sounds like a
old. I don't need you, you know, and PBC and others, in my opinion, it's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out, it's tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then
that would say, what do you mean by acting black? That's a fair question, but a participant of trash talk knows.
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now, and he ain't gonna fight. I bet you anything, he's not gonna fight somebody as good as John Ryder. And thanks to those showing us live, those will be joining us on the archive, D-Style Boxing. He'll be joined by the one and the only Joe B from Ringside Reporter. Make sure you check out the roundtable next week on this channel. We have Lyndon from Boxing Deep Dive. You could also follow on the. You could definitely follow them as well on Instagram under the same name as well. And of course, Base, the kid, the hardcore casual. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as well. So here we are. Another great show, another roundtable to get started. Just some, I'm not going to say it's breaking news because this could have been news for a while, but I just think it's significant for the sport of boxing. You know, Gennady Golovkin has been appointed chair of the new Olympic Commission by World Boxing. So World Boxing will be handling the Olympics in Los Angeles 2028. So looks like Aiba will not be part of the Olympics. That does not mean that that's the end of boxing in the Olympics. Aiba, of course, don't define boxing. Like, boxing is a sport that if an organization could do it, they could do it. So there it is. Just a reaction to this. It doesn't look like there was rumors that boxing may be canceled in the Olympics. There was some worries about that some people weren't sure if it was going to happen, right? So, Beeb, what are your thoughts on, first of all, Triple G being a chair, all right, of World Boxing, and it looks like we're going to have boxing in the Olympics in 2028.
Can't say nothing but good things about it. I mean, I don't want you to be scared thinking boxing's ever going to go away. I mean, I've been trying to tell you this since you were a kid, that boxing's going to be around for a long time.
I was very worried. I was scared. I couldn't sleep at night.
I want you to worry about stuff like that, man.
You know, but Lyndon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, really welcome the decision if that is the case, and I think it's really good they've got someone like a Triple G that knows boxing, knows amateur boxing, obviously went to the games, everything like that, and understands the sport, and it's not just about the money and the comps and all the rest of it that these guys get. So as a former Olympian, I welcome it. I really would have hated young boxers out there not getting the opportunity to represent the country at Olympic Games. So I'm not quite sure how close it got to actually being scrapped. But, I mean, they've got a little way to go. I think they've still got to tick a few boxes from what I gather to meet the IOC's requirements. But at least we're on the right track. And someone like Triple G in charge, you know that it's going to be on the level. And let's hope they get there in 2028.
Absolutely. So good news. It'll continue. It is what it is. And that'll be the new organization moving forward. The IOC handled it themselves, and I'll just say this to kind of wrap it up with this. I was confident it was going to be okay, and the reason I was confident was other sports. If the Olympics doesn't want to deal with it, they just get rid of it, right? They got rid of baseball. They got rid of a bunch of sports like it was nothing. With boxing, even finding the corruption of AIBA, the IOC said, we still want it in the Olympics, so we're going to handle it. We're going to personally handle boxing in the Olympics, and that's what they did. Maybe not every choice was popular. We know some of the controversies that happened. Boxing isn't their specialty, but the fact that the IOC wanted to keep boxing, it is one of the original sports in ancient Greece and this modern day Olympics, so they're not going to get rid of it. And it is one of the worldwide sports where there's participants from hundreds of countries. So they're just not going to get rid of it. It just is what it is, right? Plus, Linden was going to raise hell. They got rid of it, and they got rid of that. All right. So shout out to let's go ahead and just kind of, we got some fights this weekend, and I just want to kind of go through them right now. Base the Kid will be joining us momentarily. Had some issues, and there he is, the one and the only Base the Kid. How's it going, Base?
I'm good, man. Something's going on with the connection, so apologies, but yeah, all good.
Oh, good. Well, we definitely appreciate you being on. We're going to get started with a fight that is under the radar. I don't believe it should be under the radar. I think it's one of the best women fights this year, and it's Alicia Baumgartner against Delphine Persoon for Baumgartner's WBC super featherweight title. It's on Brinks.tv, at least here in the U.S. It's not carried by a major network. It's not on ESPN. It's not on the Zone. I don't even know. I thought she was still with Matchroom, so I'm definitely out of the loop with that. But what do you make of this fight? And do you think Alicia Baumgartner gets through? Because Delphine Persoon is well known for 2 tough fights with Katie. Some even felt she won the first fight, including myself.
Yeah, I mean, technically she is still with Matchroom, but this is the last fight of her deal. So because it came through purse bid, and they didn't win the purse bid, so yeah, I think it counts as the last one. Funny enough, I actually did my video prediction for this earlier. I was dropping it in the morning, but I'll let everyone know sort of my thoughts on it. I think that because she's been out of the ring for a little while, it's going to take her a little while to kind of get into things, and I think Delphine's going to get a lot of success early. Outside of that, I am predicting that there's going to be something that takes place whereby Alicia is able to turn the tide, maybe sort of in the mid rounds, whether it's whether she manages to drop her soon or she hurts her significantly to stop the momentum, and then is able to work sort of at a pace that she's comfortable with towards the end of the fight. Unless Persoon wins like either in dominant fashion or knocks her out or knocks her down multiple times, I can't see her management team, her promotion, this whole Brinks thing allowing Persoon a victory. So I've got Alicia winning points decision, probably a majority, or where one judge does see it as even, but that's kind of how I see the fight playing out.
All right, Lyndon, what you think of this matchup?
Well, we definitely won't be getting it down here, I wouldn't have thought, in Australia. But no, look, it's an interesting fight. Persoon's been around a long time. She had over 50 fights. And as you said, the fights with Katie Taylor. Look, I think it's is it an all women's card? I think it is as well. Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, look, I think it'll be a good fight. I'm a fan of Baumgartner. I think she'll be okay. I think she'll adjust to Persoon. I think she's getting on a little bit in age. I think what is she, late 30s or whatever it is that she is now. So I think that will be enough for Baumgartner to get the decisions in the States as well. Of course, she's the home fighter, and I think she'll be able to adjust to whatever Persoon throws at her. And I just think her style, her youth, I suppose if you want to call it that, will be enough to get over the line. So I'm with Base. So I think it'll be probably a close-ish fight, but I think Baumgartner gets it by decision.
Now, according to BoxRec, the IBF is on the line. IBO, WBC, and WBO. I thought it was only WBC, but maybe because maybe that was a purse bid, and it is. I didn't know that actually. It is an all women's card. Okay, well, good for them. Babe, what do you think of this matchup? And it's kind of under the radar here.
I don't think I've ever seen Delphine Persoon in a boring fight. She always comes and brings it. She likes to kind of make it a rough and tumble fight, loves to go on the inside, but Baumgartner does not really fight on the inside. She's kind of an in and out ambush style type fighter, and she likes to use the ring, use a lot of movement, and I think she'll try to do that here. So she'll try to avoid a lot of exchanges up close. And if she's able to do that, I think she can have some success. But that's still easier said than done against someone like Persoon, who's got an indomitable will, and she keeps coming forward and doesn't stop. So this is a tough one. I mean, Persoon's 39. She's got some miles on her. She is slowing down a bit. Baumgartner's been off. I think Baumgartner will nick this fight. I think it'll be a close one, but I think she'll nick it, and it'll be a fun one to watch. I think this is a really good clash of styles. You know, it's kind of like a cat and mouse type fight, and yeah, I'll be interested in this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good fight. Man, Delphine Persoon has a lot of experience here. She's 5'9", pretty tall. I do remember her, like, it always felt she was bigger than Katie, even though she was the one moving up to lightweight. And I remember how strong she was. Like, Katie could never really keep her off. Now, Katie isn't known for her power, but I mean, she's decent. I felt she won the first fight. I thought the second fight was really close, too. But I'm actually going to go Delphine Persoon here. I think she's going to win this fight. I think the activity, I think, if anything, that's going to be what wins her this fight. Baumgartner could punch. So I could see a scenario like Base mentioned. Maybe there's something that turns a tide, hurts her, drops her. Maybe that could happen. It's boxing, but I think Delphine could take a punch. Maybe there's been too many fights. Maybe this is the fight where it doesn't play out for her, as she is 39 years old. So she's up there in age, but I think she's going to win this fight personally. So, and I think Baumgartner's been out of the ring for a while. So
these style, just to let you know, it is undisputed. All the belts are on the line. Don't forget, BoxRec don't show WBA for some reason.
Oh, you know what? I completely forgot about that. I forgot that the WBA is not on BoxRec, which is stupid. I don't even know what to say. So it is on the line. So she hasn't been stripped of any of the belts at all?
No, none.
That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Well, it is what it is. So undisputed fight. There you go. So Delphine Persoon, I mean, can make that'll be big for that. Now, speaking of the women, Mikaela Mayer is going to be challenging Sandy Ryan. It's going to be at the Garden Theater. I really wish people stop calling it Madison Square Garden. It's the Garden Theater. It's not the big house. I'm just putting that out there, right? It's very misleading when they say they're fighting at Madison Square Garden. But it's an interesting fight to me. I think Mayer wins this fight. I'm not 100% sure about it, but I think her jab's going to win it. I think she's really good on the inside, good enough to, I think, give Sandy Ryan some problems. I really liked her body work in the Jonas fight. Puts her combinations very well, and I think that's what's going to win her this fight. Although Sandy Ryan is strong, and we saw what she did to Terry Harper in the last fight, just destroyed her. So it's going to be interesting. Base, any thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on it. In this fight particularly, I was watching the weigh-in earlier on, and what's kind of struck me was when you looked at both of them, like Mikaela was like the visibly sort of bigger, sort of thicker woman of the two, whereas Sandy was very sort of svelte, but they was both sort of similar height and reach and whatnot. But then that made me remember the Liam Paro versus Brock Jarvis weigh-in, where Liam Paro looked like stick thin compared to Brock Jarvis, who was like, sort of big and beefy, but he didn't have as much weight to cut. So it kind of made me think, did Mikaela have as much weight to cut as Sandy did? And ultimately, when you saw Liam Paro and Brock Jarvis the following day, Paro was like visibly bigger than Jarvis was. And I got a feeling some of that may tell in this fight. I'm kind of looking at sort of their records and everything. Now, Mikaela Mayer's got the much deeper record in terms of like bodies on it. She's fought the higher level of competition, obviously at lower weights, but Sandy is the bigger. She's actually, I think she's the faster of the two. Mikaela Mayer moves like she's stuck in mud, but she's got a very, very good jab, and she knows how to use it. Having said that, she's always used it against people that are much smaller than her. Now she's got someone the same height, reach, probably bigger, stronger, that's able to kind of, use their own jab, get on the inside and make it a proper dogfight. Something tells me, though, ultimately, I'm not 100% sure myself. I think Sandy Ryan has got all of the necessary tools to beat her. I think she has many advantages over Mikaela. And her taking this fight on a top ranked card, you know, with no considerations at all, being on the other person's platform and everything, it's a tall order, but she took it, almost jumped at it. So all of that kind of tells me she's extremely confident. However, I think, and I said this on my video, which is coming out tomorrow anyway, I think women's boxing needs Mikaela Mayer to be the champion more than Sandy. She's a better talker. She's more marketable. She's she's good on comms. There's just a lot that she does that Sandy unfortunately doesn't really have in her locker. And I just have a feeling that if both women are on their feet at the end of this fight, I think Mikaela Mayer will get the decision for those reasons.
Okay. All right. Lyndon, thoughts on the fight? Who do you think wins?
I like this fight. I really do. I think it's another big one for the females. I think, yeah, they do have similar type of styles. Look, I think what's the experience level? I think Ryan's only had 8 or 9 fights compared to 20 odd for Mayer, and but I do agree that Mayer has been predominantly at the lighter weights. I just think I had a good look at both of these girls again yesterday, and I've just got a feeling I like Sandy Ryan in this fight. I just think the fact she's the bigger fighter, or has been fighting at the bigger weight. I think she matches Mayer in a lot of areas. I think she actually is quicker than Mayer, and I just think maybe just call it a gut feel. But I think it'll be a very, very tough, even fight. I do agree with the base that Mayer tends to look like she's stuck in concrete sometimes, but I like Ryan, and I think the plucky English woman will come over to New York, and I think she can beat Mayer, and I'm going to tip her in an upset decision win over Mikaela Mayer.
All right. Babe, what you got?
It's kind of going back and forth with this because I know Mayer is really good at cutting off the ring, and she's good at pushing her opponents back, and she's actually really showing a new wrinkle. Not a new wrinkle, but I remember for the most part she was an outboxer, but then she started developing her inside game, and I started seeing it show up more in fights, and I think she's going to try to do that in this fight. But I do think Ryan is quicker. I do think Ryan is really good on her feet. She knows how to keep her distance. She knows how to stick and move. She's a great outboxer, and I think that Mayer will have a hard time tracking her down. I think she'll be trying to cut the ring off, trap her in corners, try to push her back. But I just think the problem is going to be she's going to be chasing her. She's going to be chasing her and following her around the ring. And I just think Sandy Ryan's just going to be able to maintain her distance and should be turning her. And I think she'll be pot-shotting her from the outside. So I do think Sandy Ryan could get a points decision here.
All right. Okay. It should be a very interesting fight. Now, we had seen Sandy Ryan clearly beat McCaskill in Florida and somehow did not get that decision. So you never know what could happen with the judges. I do think that it's going to be a good fight. It'll be a very interesting fight. And we got Sanders Dias is on the undercard. Harrington is on the card. So it's going to be a pretty good card, I think, for everyone to tune in, if anything. As far as the Bumgarner fight, again, that's on BRINX.TV. So that's where you got to watch it if you want to watch it. Okay. That'll be that for that. So shout out to the women. So nobody says we're a sexist show. It doesn't talk about women. There you go. All right. So let's talk about, I want to bring up Eubank Jr., right? He's going to be on the card, as we know. And he's kind of, he had something. He had a little. Now he already apologized for this. However, he went on his rant about the guy behind me. Frank Warren. He's a scumbag. Eddie Hearn's a scumbag, and he just started going. And the only one that's not a scumbag is Turki Sheik. He doesn't have us on these slave contracts, and he's paying us what we deserve. And now, granted, he later on ended up apologizing. Joby let me know that Frank Warren was actually threatening to do legal action. I don't know that prompted the apology, but it could have, right? But first of all, what's your reaction to Eubank doing this? Like, is there something deeper behind this? Was it just him having fun with it? Did he go too far with it, right? but most importantly, like, is this really like? I saw a lot of boxing fans share this and like applaud him and saying, "Yeah, yeah, you tell them. I'm glad he spoke up for you know, and
you tell them.
and
I'm
expose
glad
his promoters." You know?
you tell them. I'm glad.
Whoa, base! I don't know what happened there, brother, but there's a big echo right there. But I couldn't mute him. So, babe, what do you make of Eubank? I know he already apologized, but what did you make of it? And what do you think was his reason behind it? Is he just angry at Warren or something? Or what's going on?
Well, again, I we've talked about this several times, and certain people, no matter what you do for them, you know, I deal with this at my, you know, I work in municipality, and you know, we try to help out a lot of people, and we go bend over backwards to some people. But the one time you can't help somebody, automatically they forget all the good you've done, right? And that one thing kind of just sets them off, and they're ready to just dissolve the relationship. And I don't know Eubank personally. I look at patterns. I look at, you know, track records, and all of his relationships start off really, really good. But there always seems to be like one little thing that sets him off that a promoter may do or somebody may do. And forget about all the like you could say what you want about Solomon. Solomon got him a lot of good, you know, decent fights for big money, right? And he was in that that super middleweight tournament too, and that was a pretty, you know, lucrative bunch of fights that he had. But you know, for whatever reason, certain things he wants, maybe he wants, you know, unrealistic things or whatever, and when he's not given those things, it kind of sets him off. So you can't have a, you know, falling out with all of the top promoters in the sport and have it all be their fault. That, you know, sometimes, you know, it's like a guy that keeps breaking up with women and says, "Hey, what's wrong? What's wrong with these women?" Well, maybe there's something wrong with you, bro, because they're all not wanting to be with you. So again, I don't want to cast judgment on the guy, but just looking at it from the outside looking in, it just seems like he wants everything his way, and he wants sometimes maybe more than, you know, that's available to him. And when he doesn't get it, he reacts very negatively to it. So Frank Warren's done a lot of good things for a lot of good fighters. Eddie Hearn's done a lot of good things for a lot of good fighters. Solon's been in the game forever. I remember Arthur Abraham under Solon, right? And how many times did this guy lose but still get title shots? I mean, these guys take care of their fighters. I mean, so I don't know. Seems like Eubank had some good opportunities on the table, and for whatever reason, not always took them. So was it the promoter's fault or was it his fault? So that's open to interpretation. I tend to probably say that he's a little bit too hard on these promoters.
Hey, Base, what did you make of Eubank Jr. going off on Warren, Hearn, right, like calling them scumbags and then praising Turki, saying, "Hey, Turki, he's a man of God. He's not like these guys." So, you know what I mean? And he pays us what we deserve, and he doesn't have us on slave contracts. And I know he later apologized, but what do you think was behind that, right? And do you kind of maybe share some of the same sentiments as Eubank Jr.?
Yeah, I was there when he said it, and believe me, the entire crowd, everyone was like looking at each other like, "Oh shit!" Was that? And it's only a blessing the fact that Frank couldn't even hear him properly. You know, 'cause all the speakers were facing out towards us, like. But yeah, I mean, I was laughing the whole time with like my head down. I was like, "Wow, he's got some balls." But you know what? If that's how he feels, kudos to him. I know there's a few other people whose names I won't mention in case I get them in trouble, who, you know, the pundits or whatnot, that also said, "Huh, I like what he did," and he spoke his truth, and you know, so be it. But what I do think, I do agree a little bit with Beeb in the sense that everyone ultimately can't be a scumbag. And if that's the case, why have you constantly signed to everyone? You know, he's had multiple deals with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom before. He's had a couple times with obviously Frank. He's done business with Wasserman and Sauerland before that, especially when he had the ITV deal. So you know, they all couldn't have been that bad. Now maybe certain parts of the deals were good in the beginning, and then he wanted to do other things, and obviously his contract stated otherwise. Hence what Frank Warren said, that, you know, there was a legal breach, or he basically breached the contract for a British title defense, and, you know, Frank sued him for it and won the case. So yeah, I guess in certain aspects it's fine, but he ultimately did that just to basically say, you know, well, the only reason why I'm even gonna speak to even someone like Ben is because His Excellency, I know that he'll take care of us and he won't allow these people to do what they used to do. Yeah, overall, I mean, look, I think he wanted to draw attention to himself. I do agree with Eddie to a degree that I think he was upset that he was on the bottom table and he wasn't on the top table as like the chief support. Because if you remember, before Shakur came off, he was third from top. Now it looks like he's you know, he's no longer in that mix. So, which is quite right, to be honest, because the fight's not worthy to even be on the card, let alone to be towards the top of it. But with that being said, he's going to do what he's going to do. He made it about himself. He got the impact he wanted. People are talking about him again. He's must see again. And yeah, he achieved his goal. And now obviously he's retracted his statement, probably by orders of His Excellency, to make sure that there was nothing happening untowards after that. But he got what he wanted, and now he can't get sued because he apologized. Happy days.
Well, there you go. And Warren also accepted the apology as well in a statement. By the way, I put a poll in the chat. Are promoters criticized too much or not criticized enough? I want to know what you guys think. So far, it's 57%. Not enough, but there is 43% criticized too much. Lyndon, what do you make of it?
Well, it was bizarre, wasn't it? Look, it's probably, while it was surprising to hear a fighter say something like that, it probably wasn't surprising that fighter was Chris Eubank. He was asked the question, and you could probably see the look on his face. Will I or won't I give an honest answer? He obviously went for the honest route. But look, I didn't really like it, if I'm being honest. I think there's a time and place for these type of comments. You know, and the thing is, there's always two sides of the story as well. I've been on both sides as a fighter and a promoter. And look, yes, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, Oscar De La Hoya, Bob Arum, you name it. I'm sure they've all got their fans and their detractors. So yeah, as I said, I just think there was a time and place, and the press conference for one of the biggest events of the year was probably not the place. But having said that, he was asked the question and he answered it. But look, I think Chris Eubank he's just one of those spoiled kids who probably never got what he wanted coming through. I think the biggest fault here lies at Chris Eubank himself. I think he's had a lot of opportunities, a lot of people looking to get behind him. He had a massive head start in comparison to a lot of other fighters with his name. And I just don't think it was warranted. And look, Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. I think Frank Warren didn't handle it that well, did he? He was quite vocal as it was being said. Eddie Hearn just stood there or sat there and smirked. But look, these guys have done a lot for boxing. You got to remember, without the likes of Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren and these types of guys, we have no fights. And even though it's great to have Turki Al-Sheikh in the mix at the moment, I mean, these other guys, along with De La Hoya and Arum and Don King and everyone else through the years, have been the backbone of the sport and the reason we've got the fights we've got. So I don't think it was exactly warranted. Have your say in private or whatever it's going to be, but yeah, leave it out of the public domain like that, I would think, in future.
Yeah, the thing I didn't like, and Eubank's not the only athlete, much less boxer. I've heard a lot of athletes use this language in terms of specifically calling contracts slave contracts. I don't like the Yeah, like you're not. No one is forcing you to be a boxer, and no one's forcing you to do this, brother. You're not doing free labor. Slavery is something that has happened historically, at least in this country, and which is serious. And you don't want to compare your multi-million-dollar contract to a slave contract. I think that's ridiculous. And like Lyndon said, don't sign it, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of these boxers talk one way, and I could understand from a manager boxer perspective how you may view things, but then once a lot of these boxers have become promoters, and I think they've seen the other side of the coin. Like they see how different things are, right? I want to ask you, Lyndon, like I know you've been a promoter before in Australia, so is there anything you learned like when you actually became a promoter that you like maybe underestimated that promoters go through?
Yeah, 100%. And I probably didn't elaborate that on enough of that there. But the amount, one thing that gets forgotten in all of this, and it's all about the fighters and how hard they're done by and what they do. What they don't realize is and I didn't either, the amount of time, effort, stress, everything that these promoters are under. Everyone thinks these promoters, and I know at the top level they do, but a lot of people think promoters are just making money hand over fist and they're all swimming in money. They don't realize the sacrifice these guys make and the risk. I mean, if these events don't work, these guys are out of business. They're bankrupt. And I know for myself, it was very, very stressful with trying to get the fights organized. You've got fights falling over. You're trying to deal with managers and promoters, not promoters, managers and trainers and the fighters themselves, and the stress of selling tickets. It's a hard gig. And I'm sure even at the top level, it's a lot easier in some ways because those big fights pretty much sell themselves. But these guys put a lot of sacrifice into this. And yeah, I just don't think sometimes the fighters and the teams realize the amount of work and effort the promoters put into these events. So I just think they need to be a little bit more courteous about it and a bit more respectful to the promoters who, without them, we have no sport.
100%. Right. And look, I don't think this is the first time you're going to see a situation where fighters rebel against their promoter, especially if they have some favorability with Turki Al-Sheikh. I don't think it's I'm not saying that's exactly what happened here, but I do see that coming in the future, right? Because of course you're going to favor the guy that's going to pay them more money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not, it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. But it just is what it is. So, let's go to proceed here. Let's talk about the big fight, man. Daniel Dubois. Let me just say, I did not see that coming. Even when AJ went down in the first round, I was like, hey, he'll be all right. I just felt like he'll take control of the fight. It'll be like a wake-up call, but it just never really came. It almost felt like every time Dubois would breathe on AJ would be stumbling. I mean, that's how it felt sometimes. And it was very surprising that jab of Dubois. I knew he had a good stiff jab, but my God, it was just snapping the head of AJ back. The counters were there, and then of course we all know about the big knockout. It looked like AJ was mounting a comeback, and then boom, and that's heavyweight boxing for you, just like that. These guys are big, they're strong, they're powerful, they're explosive, and that can happen. Tyson Fury's on the outside, upset, saying that this guy just cost me $150 million. I couldn't stop laughing. I'm just like, man, this guy. It's been a rough year for Fury. You know what I mean? Sorry, babe, but Joe, what did you make of the fight? And what are your thoughts right now? Just looking back. I mean, you've had a couple days now to process it, and what are you feeling about Dubois' performance here?
You know, it's crazy because I watched the fight several times. I must have watched the fight, no lie, maybe 8 or 9 times. I liked it that much, and I was able to watch it 8 or 9 times. And I thought it was a great performance from Dubois. I thought that AJ was trying to be the counterpuncher in this fight. Like, he was trying to walk Dubois into a counter right hand. And the problem is Dubois was kind of feinting a little bit, and he was stepping in really quick with that jab. And I thought AJ would be the guy to get off first with the jab, but Dubois seemed to be the guy to get off really quick with the jab. And as you said, every time the jab landed, it really had an effect on AJ, more so than I ever thought it would. I mean, we all know Dubois is very heavy-handed, but that jab is like a right hand. You know, it's such a stiff telephone pole type jab, and so that was a little bit of a surprise that AJ had a hard time. And then when AJ tried to get off with his jab, Dubois would kind of catch parry and then shoot his jab. So I just think, you know, AJ had some problems. I believe he thought that he could time Dubois coming in, but he just wasn't able to, right? He was, Dubois was a little bit more trickier than he thought. So, that was one component of the fight that I think was really AJ's undoing there, because he just couldn't deal with Dubois' jab, because every time he hit him with it, he pushed him back, forced him to have to reset, knocked him off balance a little bit. And then there were times too when Dubois would kind of feint a little bit and just try to sell AJ that jab, and he would step in with a lead right hand. So Dubois fought a really, really great fight. It was a great game plan. And AJ did have that 10 seconds in the fifth round where he landed the right hand, and I thought the fight was going to turn. Then I was like, wow, okay, here we go. This is the inflection point of the fight, right? But Dubois recovered quickly, and then he walked him into a counter right hand. So I thought it was a great fight. People say, the rebuild, the old AJ, the new AJ. AJ to me was always what he was, right? He was a flawed fighter, but he was still a great fighter, right? He was always a top level fighter. Won the championship a couple times. All these guys have flaws. I think one guy who's probably the least flawed, at least it appears so, is Usyk, right? And even when he does get caught and stuff, he comes back. Like after that seventh round against Fury, I looked at the live odds, and Fury was like a minus 1,000. So it looked like the fight was turning, but Usyk recovered, and he won 8, 9, and 10 and 11, right? So sometimes these guys get hit and they have to try to switch up and make adjustments. And AJ, I think when he gets hit really, really badly, he has a hard time kind of recovering and switching things up a little bit and getting second wins. And so that was a problem for him. But again, people are talking about, I think we're going to talk about it later. So I'll wait for that topic to come up about rematches and all this stuff. But I think that this was just a phenomenal performance from Dubois, and it was not expected from me. I didn't expect it to happen like this. I didn't see him dominating this fight the way he did.
Yeah, Lyndon, we know it's heavyweight boxing. We know one punch could change everything. But that aside, is this something you expected, and what you think of the fight?
Certainly didn't expect it. I was very confident that Anthony Joshua would get the job done. I was just a little bit worried about Dubois. Maybe I think I sort of described him as being a little bit Frank Bruno-esque, a little bit wooden, a little bit vulnerable to punches, and maybe just a little bit fragile. I know that's not a great word for a fighter, but I was very, very surprised, not only by Dubois' performance, but also by Joshua's. I don't think he went in there with any type of game plan. I think he just went in there with the idea of just being Anthony Joshua. Whereas I thought, and I know that sounds a bit weird, but I thought Dubois went in there with a real mission. He was very composed. He was tight. He was aggressive but controlled, and defense was very good at the same time. And I just thought he really just took the fight away from Joshua. I was really critical of Joshua, and probably by association his corner, that when he was dropped in the first round and shaken in the second and third rounds, there was really no point at which he tried to step back and reset, to recalibrate, to refocus. He just kept going after or engaging with Dubois, and he kept getting caught, kept getting dropped. And I just thought, for a fighter of Joshua's experience, I couldn't believe that he didn't have the ability to make that decision, and more so Ben Davison in his corner. And I know Ben Davison's been brought in more so for probably the mental side of the preparation for Joshua rather than the tactical side. I think that really come to the fore in the fight when he needed some tactical advice during the fight, and it just wasn't forthcoming. And I just thought that even though he did not really rocked, he did hit and land with Dubois early in the fifth. But again, I would have thought he would have been a bit more controlled about it. And he went straight after Dubois and got hit with that counter right hand. And just the way he threw that uppercut straight up the middle, he didn't move his head, left hand down low. It was just a recipe for disaster. Dubois timed him perfectly, bang, and it is all over. So I'm really happy for Dubois. He's gone up a lot in my books, but I was really disappointed in everything about the AJ performance. I know fighters like it, this has happened to fighters in the past, I get that, but I just don't think he gave himself the best opportunity to win the fight by his game plan and his whole approach to the fight, and also his reaction during the fight. So good on Dubois, big fight to weight him, but I'm not quite sure where Joshua goes after this, apart from the rematch, which we'll discuss.
For sure. And guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. I appreciate everybody here, and then let us know what you thought about the fight with AJ and Dubois. Base, I'm sure you've talked about it on other podcasts and stuff. But what do you make of the, looking back, reflecting back, Dubois, AJ?
Yeah, look, it was a tremendous performance by Daniel Dubois, but it was also equally a horrendous performance by Anthony Joshua. So if they were both able to level out, it would be interesting to see which way it would actually go. Anthony Joshua does have a lot more certain physical attributes than Daniel Dubois, but Daniel has a few things that Anthony Joshua doesn't, and one of those is committedness. Like, he's always extremely committed to what he wants to do. And I said last week, Joshua would try and condition him for shots. He might try feint, he might try throw jabs to try and condition Dubois for certain punches, but Daniel is not thinking about what you're doing. He's only ever thinking about what he's supposed to be doing. So, and I was saying, I equated it to the same reason as to why he ended up getting his eye socket busted by Joe Joyce, because Joe was hitting him with that left hand consistently, and he wasn't thinking, oh, let me slip that, let me try and block that. He's thinking, I'm going to try and throw my jab, I'm going to throw my backhand, and he's just always in his plan. So I think the fact that Anthony Joshua tried to start as slow as he did, and went on the back foot and tried to throw varied jabs, which is what I said he might do, until he realized that Daniel's throwing a ramrod jab straight through the center, that he's always anticipating to try and push through. He's trying to push it through your face. He's not trying to just, find you with it. He's not trying to just range. His jab is basically the same as a lot of people's backhand. That's his aim with the jab. And Joshua fell into that trap. I don't know how much I can take his performance after the first round, because one thing that's always about Anthony Joshua, and it has been from we've seen the frailties even from his amateur days, like when he gets hit and hit hard, like he stays hit. He's got decent recovery in the sense that his head is lucid, but the body doesn't always seem to connect with the head when he takes a hard shot. And I think he was just in survival mode from rounds 2, 3, and 4, but managed to finally get his legs back towards the end of the fourth. Hence, when we saw slightly better composure, better game planning, and probably him feeling as if Daniel was starting to slow down a bit. But holding his hands as low as he did, recipe for disaster. He hasn't held his hands that low in God knows how long. I don't think since he was an amateur. So was that the team told him, okay, keep the arms down so you throw it from outside of Daniel's vision? Did he decide to do that? Were his arms tired from maybe training before he got into the ring? They had the issue with him trying to take the robe off. What was his arms biceps, were they just too swole for him to get it off at that particular time? Like, there's so many things you just wonder about. In the whole ring walk, I actually thought, everyone said that he looked nervous. I actually thought he looked good in the ring walk, and when he was in the ring, just in that one spot, just eyes zoned in on Daniel moving to the side, I thought, oh, okay, he's locked in. But maybe he was a bit spacey. It's really hard to sort of understand on his side of things, but yeah, on Daniel's side, he just done everything perfect. And then even when he got caught with the uppercut, he got caught with 2 big uppercuts in the fight, he got caught with 2 big backhands, Also in the fourth round, AJ caught him with a backhand towards like the back of the side of the head, but towards the back where the temple is. Daniel, he shook that one off well. The next one, he shook that one off well. You can tell that he's got very good powers of recovery. And yeah, he basically saw the tells that AJ was doing. AJ didn't set up that backhand. He just tried to go for broke for maybe he thought he didn't have nothing left in the legs and he had to get him out of there then and there. But amateur. Same thing he did with Dillian White, got himself clipped there. Same thing he did with Vladimir Klitschko, got himself clipped there. Same thing he did against Andy Ruiz, got himself clipped there. So I'm starting to feel as if every time he's in like the biggest fights, like or the fights where there's something supposed to be credible at the end of it, is when he starts making these rash decisions. It's gonna be interesting what ultimately happens after this. But yeah, whenever he's almost feeling like he needs to impress more than anything else, this is what happens. Maybe that's pattern behavior at this point. But yeah, look, it was great for Daniel. Well done to him. He slayed the king as he said he wanted to. But let's just see if the king looking to make a return.
Okay, Joe. I know you wanted to touch on what is next. Do you want to see a rematch? And if yes, no, and do you think whether you want to see it or not, do you think AJ's done? Because people are calling for his retirement at this point.
No, he's not done. I'm going to ask the question that I ask every time someone tries to really downplay a fighter. Can you name 5 heavyweights definitively that you think would beat him? Now you could argue Usyk, right? Maybe Fury. Maybe now Dubois you put ahead of him, obviously. But I don't know. I would probably still pick him to beat Joseph Parker. I would probably still pick him to beat Zhilei Zhang. Crazy as it may sound, I would pick him to beat Piccoli too, because Piccoli's kind of a slower guy, fights at a slow pace, loads the shots up, kind of wings them wide. Styles make fights. Again, Joshua has a lot of good physical attributes. He's a quick-handed, explosive guy. The biggest criticism I've always had with him, though, is the jab. Sometimes he throws it beautifully, and other times he's just very inconsistent with it. He throws it very lackadaisical, and there are times when he does bring that jab, when he brings it back down to his waist. I've seen him get hit with a lot of right hands over the top of that left hand when he brings it back. So that's one of his flaws. But a lot of times he'd be out of range and guys couldn't capitalize on it. But like as Bay said, Dubois constantly coming forward. He's always in attack mode. So that distance gets cut pretty quickly because once Dubois works up ahead of steam, there's no stopping him. And another reason why Abbas, you said, why did he keep it low? A lot of times you keep it low because you're trying to suck the guy in. I really believe that he was trying to be the counter puncher in this fight because he thought he could catch Daniel Dubois a little bit over anxious, lunging in, because he knows Dubois likes to come forward. So he figured he could time those bull rushes, right? But for whatever reason, he just couldn't do it. So at first I was like, oh, this guy gonna get another rematch? But then I start thinking about things, and the rematch could be interesting. I don't hate it, to be honest with you. I don't hate the rematch. I really don't. Would I pick Daniel Dubois to win in the rematch? I would favor him. But I still can't count Anthony Joshua out, man. He can punch. He does know how to box very well from the outside. He's a good mid-range guy. Sometimes he's a little bit stiff and robotic, but it's just weird. Like when you watch him fight, sometimes you just watch him do beautiful things in there, and you say to yourself, why can't this just be constant, right? But for whatever reason, there's just always these lapses, and it could be he's thinking too much, indecisiveness, whatever the case may be. But to sit there and say that he's done. He's not a good fighter. He's walking into the Hall of Fame. He's still a top 4 or 5 heavyweight. All these guys are vulnerable. Usyk's going to be 38 in January. Fury's 35. So these guys are getting up there. Styles make fights. So again, if he catches anyone on an off night, he can still win. So I'm not ready to say he's done. I do think, though, at this stage with all the money he's made, I do agree with Eddie Hearn wholeheartedly. 2 or 3 more fights, no more than 3, preferably 2. This rematch, and even if he loses this rematch, could he still get a fight with Fury? When Fury wins in December after he beats Usyk and becomes the unified champ again, he could still fight Fury, right? So, I mean, people will still pay to see this guy fight, and there's still a lot of money on the table for him. Then you may argue, well, who cares about? He's got enough money, but people don't think like that. Even when you have a lot of money is like points on a scoreboard. Like it gives you like status. Like it's not about the money itself, what you could buy with it. It's just like these guys compete with each other. Like he still wants to be the man. You know what I mean? So how do you be the man? A part of being the man is being able to draw these crowds to the stadium and being able to garner these huge purses. I'm sure him and Fury are going to be like battling for the Forbes list. Well, he probably won't be Fury this year in the Forbes list, but that's in the back of their mind. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Again, I'm not ready to write the guy off.
Lyndon, rematch, is that something you're interested in? And if not, like what other options would you like to see from each guy?
Yeah, no, I agree with Joe. I think that I don't think he's finished. I think we're very quick to write fighters off these days, and I know it was a devastating loss for AJ, but look, the rematch makes obvious sense. You've obviously got Usyk and Fury going at it in December. I know he could probably fight Parker and Zhang and these types of guys, but it just makes sense, and also makes perfect sense for Dubois. I know he said that he's probably going to look for the biggest fight out there. Well, at the moment, this is the biggest fight out there for Dubois. We know they're going to get another 96,000 people there, although there was doubts about the crowd. I'm sure Base will touch on that, but there was reports that it wasn't as packed as it was made out to be, but that's another conversation we can have. But yeah, look, I think that the fight makes logical sense. Maybe do it in the first quarter of 2025. By that stage, Usyk and Fury would have had their fight. Maybe a few other dominoes might have fallen, and then we can sort of go from there. But I just think Dubois Joshua 2 is the fight for both these guys at the moment. And you've got to remember too, it's not like, I know Joshua was knocked down 3 or 4 times, whatever it might have been. But apart from that, wasn't like a long type of fight where he took a lot of punishment and he took a lot of damage. So I think he'll recover okay from it, and I think he's capable of winning. But he needs to change the game plan, and whether that means a different trainer or whatever it might be, he needs to change things up, or the same thing's going to happen. But I think the fight itself, Joshua Dubois 2, makes all the sense in the world.
All right. Base, rematch, no rematch. I mean, what are some matchups you'd like to see from each guy?
Well, look, personally, if the rematch is called, I'm all for it. If it's not called, okay. Like I see it both ways, quite frankly. In terms of the rematch, I would like to see it. And I believe that if he's gonna fight Dubois again, it has to be immediately. He can't go away, fight another contender or someone else and then come back, because that's more miles, that's another training camp, that's another 12 to 14 weeks that he wants to prepare. And sometimes I think he's doing too much in terms of these long elongated training camps, although I do know that apparently the cardio sides of his training camps aren't where they should be these days. I mean, I think I know for a fact that when he was with Derek James, he was doing a lot more road work than he usually does in the UK. So is that part of the reason why he necessarily stopped going out to the States to train? Possibly. the thing is, he can do so much better in the rematch. Like, as great as Daniel Dubois was, we saw how bad AJ was. There's things that he done in that fight that he's never done before, and it weren't a case of Father Time just caught up to him randomly. It was he's making fundamental flaws that you almost never really see. But if history kind of tells us anything about AJ, I mean, number one, he does better in rematches, but number two, when he has a bad performance, is usually followed by maybe 2 or 3 good performances, maybe an exceptional performance here or there. And a lot of people will obviously write him off and say he should retire. And I can understand it from the perspective of you haven't got anything else to prove. Obviously, yeah, he's trying to get to that 3 times heavyweight champ thing. But even that, it's funny because a lot of people talk about that like that's the obviously that puts you in a certain category of competitors. But there's been 4 people that have been 3-time, and there's 1 person that's been 4-time, and no one's ever going to get to that in this day and age. So what's the difference between 2 and 3 at this point? It's not really that much. But yeah, look, if he wants the rematch, I still give him very good odds to win it. I'd probably still pick him because ultimately, no matter what happens in that fight, he can't do as badly as he did in the last one. Even if, ironically, he got knocked out earlier, it wouldn't be because he performed worse. Like, it would just be Daniel is just literally that much better than him. So I would like to see it in good in that sense of finality. Is he really that much better, or is it just a case that, yeah, he got it wrong in the night? In terms of other fights, if that fight weren't to happen, then I don't really need AJ to fight any of the other like real deep killers in the division. Fight Deontay Wilder again. Fight Deontay Wilder. Fight Dillian White again. Get your trilogy with him. Fight Fury if Fury's willing to take the fight, win, lose, or draw against Usyk. Like, literally just fight the people from your era that either you haven't fought yet, or that there's they're of the same kind of mileage and slippage as you, and just leave all the younger, sort of the young guns and the young killers to Dubois and the other people in that generation and the next generation moving on. As for Daniel, yeah, I mean, Joseph Parker deserves his shot. So that to me would be the next fight that he should have. Outside of that, Martin Bakole is definitely a fighter that deserves his shot, and so is Ajit Caballero. So if you're not going to face Usyk or Fury, then that's who you need to fight next if Joshua is not there.
All right. One of my favorite heavyweights of all time is Jersey Joe Walcott. It took him 5 attempts to become heavyweight champion of the world. That means he got beat 4 times on his way to getting. I do think he won the first fight with Joe Louis, subjectively, if you ever have a chance to watch that. But he got knocked out in the rematch, and things didn't quite go his way 4 times. Manny Pacquiao was knocked out twice in the lower weight classes. And then when he got knocked out and then went on to have a great run, and then he got knocked out by Marquez, and everybody said this guy should retire, he's done. And look at what he did. He still went on to go on and beat Keith Thurman, the reigning welterweight champion, and he still had a great run after all that, right? Even after the Floyd loss, right? So it's we can't just write guys off because they lost. We can't just say, right? Like, how poorly do people think of Dubois? If you think like, oh man, Dubois beat you, you should retire. Like what? This is crazy, right? And one thing I want to say is, what a year for Daniel Dubois. And I'm going to say it right now, although it's not for sure, but if Fury beats Usyk in the rematch, right? I think Daniel Dubois is the fighter of the year. I don't think any other fighter has a better year. I'm not saying he's the best fighter in boxing, but that would make him. I mean, Usyk's 2 wins over Fury. I think I would give it to Usyk, to be honest. That's what I'm saying if Usyk loses. But Dubois, he should be a candidate for fight of the year. Underdog, big underdog in 2 fights. I did panels and nobody was giving this guy. I heard a lot of, I hope he wins. I would be happy for him if he wins, but nobody was
Gotta give Dan credit. You got to give Danny credit, man.
Well, yeah, Danny did pick up to win. That's right.
He was on
But-
there. You got to give Danny credit.
But what I'm saying is the consensus was that he wasn't going to win. The odds makers, right, were not giving this guy a shot. And even though he was a slight favorite against Miller, people were just saying, "Oh, Miller's going to get in his head." Like people just had to stop that Dubois is a weak guy that he could easily get in his head and bully around. And he went out there, he beat the hell out of Miller in December. And in 9 months, look at those 3 wins he had, right? What a year for Daniel Dubois, and what a win this last Saturday. It was unbelievable. So, and then beating Hergovich, who was the quote-unquote boogeyman of the division, was a big win for him as well. So, what a year. I mean, I remember when this dude had, what was it, the ankle? Or he had like an injury in one of his fights. People were even questioning whether he should continue fighting. Yeah, like people, I remember he was a guy, people were saying that he should call it a day. He doesn't have it in him, blah, blah, blah. Look at the year.
I never gave up on Dubois. I never gave up on that guy, man.
Like I heard
he was young, man. He was a young guy, man. Eric on the Ringside Reporter podcast got so mad when what happened. The guy had a retinal bleed. That eyeball was floating around. He could have gone blind if he continued in that fight with Joe Joyce. That was a calculated move. That was a great thing.
If that fight's not stopped, he probably has to retire after that. So
never gave up on that guy, man. He's too young to give up on.
And then he lost to Usyk, but we all know the controversy with all that, and it is what it is. But here we are.
I'm not going to go down that road again, please.
But I'm just saying, right?
Please.
But I will say this: if Usyk beats Fury again.
Won't happen, but go ahead.
And then he decides to ride off into the sunset. I mean, just think about how well his resume is going to age, having a young champion like Dubois, like becoming the next guy in the division. I mean, that is amazing. So, not to make it about Usyk, but I'm just.
That was a great card too. Did you enjoy that whole card? That whole card was really good. Baze, did you like that card?
No, I thought the card was shit, to be honest.
Baze, come on, let's be honest.
No. No, I thought the card was shit. I thought the matches themselves, like on paper, were okay, but I'll be honest, you see, when the actual card was announced, like we went to the press conference and we saw all of the fights that were taking place, because none of them were released before that. Me and even some of the presenters from the Zone and stuff were looking and saying, this doesn't look all that. There's only 2 fights on that day which anyone thought was actually good initially, and that was Boatsi and Hutchinson. They thought that fight was on paper. They thought that fight was a good fight, and the main event. And then they said, "Oh, Liam Smith and Josh Kelly. That's a bit weird, but it's intriguing." But Tyler Denny had just come off a great victory against Felix Cash, but then no one was thinking, "Oh, I want to see Tyler Denny versus Hamza Shiraz." Like all the fights that were there, none of them were necessarily fights that anyone was particularly thinking about. And on the night, none of them were that entertaining. Apart from the main event.
Do you like the undercard on October 12th? That's pretty good.
Yes, that is a very good undercard. But even on that undercard, there's a couple of fights there that shouldn't be there, and I've said that before. And then there's a couple of keep busy fights, but other than that,
Cards can't be perfect, though. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying it's got to be perfect. I'm just saying, but there looks like there's more purpose on that card, on that undercard, than there was on the one last week, and it just wasn't that entertaining to watch for me. Maybe other people enjoyed it.
When Lyndon had to put shows together, not every fight's going to be a barn burner,
But that's my thing. I'm not saying that the fights themselves were bad looking at them. They looked like they should have been good fights, but a lot of them to me didn't really turn out that way. They were very ho-hum and boring.
They didn't meet your perceived expectations, is what you're saying.
They were just boring to watch. Like there was no excitement in most of them.
Can somebody tell me why do we have concerts at these events?
I don't like the concerts. Base, you like the concerts?
No. I don't actually know. It depends who's performing. Let me say that. Although there's a couple of them where, especially the Riyadh ones, like the ones over there, because they do that little hybrid times and they have fighters coming out at like 4:30 in the morning to fight. And I don't agree with that at all. There's several of them where, it's going to almost 2 o'clock in the morning over here, and you got someone that most people don't know, like doing the concert. Liam was it Liam Gallagher? That wasn't great. The Eminem thing was okay, but again, it was just late. So why did it need to be there? I don't mind it if on the whole, but just time the events better. Have less fights if you're gonna do that, and just
I don't think they should have them. Look, if I want to watch Eminem, I go on YouTube and if I just type down Eminem live performance, I can watch Eminem all day if I want.
Right.
I don't need him on a boxing card.
I love watching the main event at 6:30 Eastern time, man. I hate watching those US pay-per-views and having to stay up till 1 o'clock to watch the main events. I hate that.
Yeah, it's
now you know how we feel.
Can't stand it.
That's right. All right. Look, all I want to say about one more thing I want to just mention about Anthony Joshua. I still think he could beat a lot of guys. I still think he could win a belt again, and I'm not that convinced that the Wilder fight is still not a massive fight. I think that's a big fight, and if there was ever a perfect time to make it again, it's now. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like just promote it like the winner needs to leave the sport or something like that. I don't know. Like I still think it's a massive.
Loser leaves town.
Loser goes home.
Loser goes home. You know what I mean? And people could they could be like, for what? Like, look, when that Saturday comes and he's just gonna fight Wilder and they have the press conference and those two fan bases don't like each other. Like, it's gonna be a big event. And it's gonna be tense for a lot of people. I still think it's a fight they can make, right? And that's how I feel about it. They should have done it last December.
Peace out. Sorry, can I just say, just before we move on to the next topic, with regards to obviously the rematch and people saying, AJ should retire or, there's no point taking it. People said the same thing about Chris Eubank Jr. with Liam Smith. They said the same thing about Lee Wood with Mauricio Lara. There's been many of them, especially in the last couple of years, where, oh no, don't take that rematch, it's all wrong for you. And then ultimately it goes the other way. So there's precedence for the rematch to not be a foregone conclusion.
And speaking of the UK and fighters like Lennox Lewis got knocked out twice and fights nobody expected him to get knocked out and came back and won the rematch. So anything could happen, right? So, look, one more topic, and I want to know what the chat thinks as well. We're going to do the Iron Throne 2024 of each continent, all right? Who's the best fighter of every single continent? I'm going to start with the most obvious one. I don't believe there's going to be any disagreement with this one. We're going to start with Asia. All right, the continent of Asia. Beeb, who's the best fighter in Asia?
Inoue.
All right. Lyndon?
In a way, with Nakatani right up there as well.
Okay. Okay. Base.
That's actually a tough one because it's hard to kind of measure these three together, but it's either there's Inoue, Nakatani, and Kenshiro Taraji. It's one of those three. Inoue is probably because he's still got the clean record and he's done it multiple weights. You might give it to him, but Taraji deserves consideration in that conversation.
Okay. I'm going to say Inoue. I do want to ask this, though, if it's technically like Russia's complicated. Russia's like a big country and it's kind of connected to Europe, and so, but you could still count it for Asia. But if Bivol was more active, would anybody consider Bivol?
He's half Korean too.
He's
half Korean, so you can include him.
Well, I mean, you don't have to be Asian to be part of Asia. Like,
I'm Asian. I'm Asian. I'm from. I have Lebanese descent. Lebanon's in Asia. Technically, gotcha. I'm Asian.
Is it? I think that one thing that the reason nobody will bring up a Bivol is because he's, or even better, be they've been so inactive, right? But they are going to be fighting soon, so that's going to be a big fight. By the way,
he's not going to be better, though. It's going to be a problem for him.
All right. Lyndon, I want to start you off with this one. Let's do Oceania. That's the Australian region. Who's the top dog of that?
I think Jaya Pataya. I think, look, it's great. We've got a few options at the moment. We're obviously with Tim Tszyu, Liam Paro, Cambosis, the Maloney's, whatever it might be. But no, I think Jaya Pataya is on the march, and I think he's on the march to pound for pound top 10. I think he's a great fighter, and will get better and better as the opportunities arise.
Okay, all right. Just to put it out there, we got Tszyu, we got Paro, some good fighters out there. Babe, who's the top dog of Australia or Oceania, if you want to expand it?
I have to say Jaya Pataya as well.
Jaya Pataya, base.
Yeah, I'm rocking with my Oos. So yeah, Pataya.
Okay. Look, if Tim Tszyu wasn't coming off the loss, because technically he's coming off a loss, whether it's unfair or not, I might be considering him, but I'm gonna have to agree. Jaya Pataya will take it. Paro's not that far behind, by the way. People are still kind of underestimating him, but like, who knows, right? If he keeps going, he's definitely
and let's not forget Joseph Parker as well. I mean, he's
sure.
counts. So
yeah, for sure, 100%. All right, so let's go with North America. Let's start with you, Beeb.
I think I'll go with Terrence Crawford.
Okay. And Chad, let us know North America, that's Canada, U.S., Mexico, and the Caribbean and all that. So, so there you go. Lyndon, North America.
A little bit controversial. I'm going to go back to Canelo. I think I was very impressed with his last performance. I think the old Canelo's back. I wasn't impressed at all with Terrence Crawford. I know he's probably, it's arguable, but I'm going to stick with our man Canelo Alvarez.
Canelo keeps the throne in Lyndon's eyes. Base, talk to us.
Tough one, but I think I'm going to go with Crawford as well, just because I feel like he's, I think on a technical level, I feel like he's a little bit better and sharper than Canelo, but Canelo is still a generational great.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna go with Canelo. But I know he has that Spence win. It's a big win. But it's does that really compare, right, to like I don't know, it's subjective how back we want to go or whatever, but I just think Canelo's been more active, and I'm still going to say Canelo at this point personally. It's not crazy to say but though, and there's people saying Canelo, some people saying but in the chat, so and I think it is between those two. I don't really know who else you could put in the mix, but there's some other guys obviously, but there you go. Unless anybody wants to say Ryan Garcia, he says he's King Ryan. You know what I mean? Like, or Tank Davis. Some people might say that. Who knows, right? But yeah, I don't know about that one. So look, South America. There's some candidates. I'm going to say Fernando Daniel Martinez. Okay, I'm going to say he's the top dog right now. Has that big win over Ioka. That's who I got. But base South America.
You know what? As might sound a bit controversial, but I'm rocking with Chocolatito still. I still think he was robbed twice against Estrada, and I still feel like he's on that trail. He's looking to do big things again. I know he's old. He's getting on, but yeah, that's who I'm gonna say.
Okay, all right, Dave.
I said Fernando Martinez too. So you stole my pick.
I stole it. I read your mind. You can take Consecao.
Little Professor X that you did. You stole my mind.
Okay, all right, Lyndon.
Limited options in this category. Look, I was maybe even leaning towards maybe, does Lara qualify as Cuban? I think that's still South America, isn't it? Or is that?
That's actually North America, Cuba.
Yeah, that'll be North America as a Caribbean.
Okay. Well, I'll go with Chocolatito as well. I think he's still got a little bit left in the tank, so I'll go with Chocolatito as well.
I'm using soccer or baseball, call it football, like CONCACAF is North America, so so the Cuba's part of that. Okay, all right, but you're right. South America doesn't have a lot of options. Speaking of maybe not a lot of options, Africa, babe, what you got? I'll let you go first before you say it's your pick.
Sevenanti Nanshinga.
Okay, all right. I'm going to say Martin Bacoli. That's what I'm going to say, but that's just me. All right, I'm just not. I don't want to be contrary. Just go against Beeb. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? But we all know he would destroy him, bro. One punch, you destroy him. You know that. But Base, who do you got?
Funny enough, I would have said Martin Bacoli as well. Nonshinga's close, but Bacoli is obviously, he's the king of Africa at this point.
Okay, Lyndon.
Yeah, no, I agree. Martin Bacoli for me. 3 out of 4.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, Europe. Let's start with you, Lyndon.
You have to go for Alexander Usyk, wouldn't you? That's Europe. I know there's probably a lot more talent in Europe, but no, it's got to be Usyk.
Okay. Babe?
Gonna have to go with Usyk, man. Up until December 21st, he's gonna be the guy.
Okay, all right.
And Fury will take the title back, and he'll be that guy, but not right now. He's not.
So Usyk's that dude. Base.
Yeah, clean sweep, Usyk.
All right, I agree. Usyk is the man that. There you go. Last time we did this, it was debated. Like people were picking Fury or Usyk, but Usyk's beating him. Kind of took that right. So there you go. Maybe next year we'll be seeing Fury. Who knows, babe? All right. Look, this has been a great show. Thank you to Lyndon Bass for coming on. Next week, Ringside Reporter is the place for the round table.
Did you speak about Benavidez?
My bad. My bad. Let's do that really quick. My bad.
Sure.
Rookie mistake. So let me break this down for everybody. Before everybody leaves, everybody hold it. Before you click X on your browser there, hold on. All right. So earlier today, I'm hearing all these reports from the media, right? Benavidez versus Morale, it's in the works. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, right? And then Benavidez puts in his stories on Instagram. No, that's not true. Like, I'm going to fight Hart, right? And I'm like, what? What's his first name again, Hart?
Jesse Hart.
Jesse Hart. Like, I was going to say Kevin Hart, and I know it's not it, right? He's not fighting Kevin Hart. So Jesse Hart comes out. I don't know what they're talking about. Nothing's been offered to me. I don't know anything about fighting Benavidez. I haven't even talked to anybody. So I'm like, what? And then, Jake Donovan comes out, reported from Ring Magazine, and he's talking about, like, hey, look, everything's fluid. They may or may not be in the undercard of a tank fight. It may happen in December. It may happen in January. We're just staying kind of fluid about it, which I don't even know what the fuck that means, bro. Right? Because you're saying you're going to fight Morale, then psych, no, it's not. It's actually Love. And then, Hart, I'm sorry, Hart doesn't know about it. So I don't even know what the fuck's going on, right? This team needs to get their story straight. They need to do a huddle. Okay, they need to get together and just get their story straight. Because you guys are all over the place. Samson is saying one thing. The dad is saying another thing. David's tweeting about another thing, putting his Instagram stories, another thing. Hart doesn't know anything about it. I don't even know what the fuck's going on. But, Beeb, what do you make of this mess?
I'm done. I'm done with Benavidez's team. I'm starting to become done with him. I hate saying this because I'm starting to just get sick of Benavidez, man. I used to be a huge fan of Benavidez. We interviewed him. He's a really nice guy, beautiful family. But this is just so disingenuous. All these games and you're the fighter, you're in control. And I said this. I said, okay, so now he's moving up to 175. Sitting there saying Canelo's avoiding him and Canelo doesn't want to fight him, and he's, why can't he be man enough to fight me? And I said to myself, watch him go. If he goes up to 175 and there's another opponent that we don't want to see, and if it's no disrespect to Jesse Hart, but again, you moved up to 175. Mauricio Suleiman said if you moved up to 175, you'd be the mandatory for the winner of this fight with Beterbiev and Bivol. Now, obviously, they're going to fight in October, so they won't be readily available right away. But if you like, it was either Morel or bust, or maybe like Morel, Boazzi, Anthony Yard, someone like that. If it wasn't someone like that, then I was like, this guy's really not serious, man. And lo and behold, if it's going to be Jesse Hart, which I probably think it's going to be, then I'm like, okay, what significance does this fight have?
Why do you think they were even talking about morale? What you think they were trying to give the impression that they were trying to make a morale fight?
Because they try to, have this rah-rah talk all the time to make people think that, they'll fight anybody, but their record suggests otherwise. Right? Look how long it took to make the Caleb Plant fight. So I'm just done with I have friggin' what's his name there, Samson Lukowitz on. I interviewed him about 3 times. He'll do an interview with me saying one thing. Then he'll do an interview on the Boxing Voice and say another thing. Then he'll do an interview with G Funky and say another thing. And I had a conversation with him on the phone one time, and he was like, "Oh, this is definitely gonna happen. Blah, 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 blah. We really want this." And then 2 hours later, he's on the internet saying, "Oh, this fight's never gonna happen." So I'm just done with this team. And then here's the thing too, you hear people say, "Oh, well, it's not the fighter's fault, it's the manager's fault, it's the promoter." Bro, you make the decisions. You're signing the contracts. If this team is not doing right by you, then get another team. Oh, well, I have a lifetime contract with David Bennett. What? No such thing as a lifetime contract. So what do you mean you get a lifetime contract with this guy? You can't enforce a lifetime contract with somebody. It's an unenforceable contract.
Okay. Base, well, what do you make of the whole situation? And do you think they were just trying to use Morale for some type of clout?
I think they're doing the same thing they did with Canelo. Exactly that. You pull it in there, you long it out, you make it seem as if it's going along. Then as soon as that person decides to get upset or get frustrated, and they go another, you see, they didn't want it, or now we have to fight this person because they didn't want this fight, or they took too long, etc., etc. I've seen the play numerous times. I agree 100% with Beeb on this one. We like to go back and forth and have conjecture on many topics, but this is one I'm glad that he's finally seen the light with regards to that team, and especially that manager. But David is maybe before you might have said he may have wanted things, because he did always seem to push back on words that Sampson said in the past. But you don't have that much level of pushback and disagreement and then re-sign with that same person. So you're just as complicit in all the bullshit. I don't think he wants hard fights unless there's a big amount of money attached to it. And again, if you look at the Vosdik fight, 3 years out, he had 3 sort of comeback fights against middling opponents, except Richard Bolotnik. In my personal opinion, I still think Vosdik won that fight, and I believe if he was the home fighter, they would have gave him the decision. But you look at that fight, and you see David Benavidez who couldn't rock, stumble, or buzz Vosdik once in the entire fight. You had Vosdik looking like he was pulling his punches in almost every round, busting up David's face, pushing him around the ring. Like, you could just tell that he's not, if you can't bully the small guys at 154 coming up to 168, he's not that guy. And I think the team know that as well. So they're going to do as much as they can to keep him away from anyone that can basically do him damage, in my personal opinion. But yeah, the way they're going about it is not very smart, because they're not I think they've all got different connections when it comes to their conference call. Someone's on dial-up, someone's on 5G, and someone's on 3G, because they're not syncing together at all, and it's laughable at this point.
Yeah, just to kind of put it out there for everybody. This is how it all went down today, okay? We're going to be fighting. We're working on a fight. It's imminent. We're going to do a fight with Morale. David puts out, no, it's not going to be Morale. It's going to be Jesse Hart. And then they say it may not even happen in December. It's fluid, and it depends if Tank fights and where Tank fights, and we may do it in January instead. Hart comes out and says, I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. No one's ever talked to me. That's what's going on. Lyndon, your thoughts?
Look, I think this one just falls into the category of let's just wait and see how the dominoes fall. I don't know. It's hard to make a comment because I'm with the guys. You just don't know what's going to come from Benavidez or Samson Lukovic. So, look, it's interesting, though, that Hart knew nothing about this whatsoever. It's normally, maybe the other way around, that the A side is the one saying, I don't know what's happening. But look, obviously, like everyone else, I would love to see Benavidez and Morel actually fight, but I've got a feeling what Benavidez will do, and maybe Morel to some extent, will just continue to maybe fight those fringe type of guys and hope they get the fight against Bivol or Beterbiev or whoever it might be. So, and there's plenty of good fights at 175, but I've got a feeling that maybe Benavidez will just wait until maybe the last hope of a Canelo fight is gone, and then he might pick it up. But I've just got a feeling he's going to just bide his time until the Beterbiev and Bivol situation is sorted out, and then hope he gets a shot at that. And I wouldn't have thought that the Morel fight happens until either one of those guys gets a shot at the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol, I would have thought.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say, just to wrap it up, it seems like all around the world, we're talking about the fights that are happening, what guys are doing, what the next move is. And in American boxing at the moment, it seems like everything, just look at the headlines on Boxing Scene, BattleTalk.com, everything's about the fights that are not happening. Everything's about the beefs on Twitter. Everything's about just what we're not getting, right? And the reason why we're not going to get it. And it's that is the state of American boxing at the moment, in my opinion, and that's got to change soon. Like, this is getting ridiculous at this point. All right. With that said, guys, I appreciate everybody for coming on. Shout out to Baze for reminding me, and Lyndon, thanks for coming on as always. And everybody subscribe to the channel. See you next week on Ringside Report. This is D-Style Boxing. Keep it boxing. We're out of here. Peace.
Good night, everybody.
Peace.